March of 1918, a United States Navy cargo ship departed from Barbados, carrying over 300 people on board. The weather was calm, the route was known, and there were no distress signals. The ship never arrived. No wreckage was found, and no confirmed explanation was ever established. The USS Cyclops was one of the largest cargo ships in the United States Navy at the time. Built to transport heavy materials across long distances, the ship was designed for strength and capacity rather than speed. Its steel structure allowed it to carry substantial loads, including raw materials needed for industrial and military use. By the time the United States entered World War I, ships like the Cyclops had become an important part of the war effort. They moved resources between ports, supporting operations that depended on steady supply. The Cyclops was assigned to carry manganese ore, a material used in the production of steel. The cargo was heavy, the route was established, and the ship itself was considered capable of completing the journey. On board were more than 300 people, crew members and passengers, traveling along a path that had been used before. There was nothing unusual about the assignment, nothing that suggested the voyage would not be completed, and when the ship departed, it did so under conditions that gave no immediate cause for concern. In early March of 1918, the USS Cyclops departed from Barbados, beginning the final leg of its journey toward the United States. The ship carried its cargo of manganese ore, along with the crew and passengers on board. Conditions at departure did not indicate immediate danger. The weather was not severe, the route had been traveled before, and there were no reports suggesting that the ship was unable to continue. As it moved away from port, the Cyclops remained part of the expected flow of vessels crossing the Atlantic. There was no single moment that marked a change, no event that signaled trouble. The ship continued forward. At some point after leaving Barbados, the Cyclops made its final known communication. The message did not indicate distress. It did not suggest that the ship was in danger. It confirmed its position, and then there was nothing further. No additional signals were received, no requests for assistance, no indication that the ship had encountered a problem. The Cyclops did not arrive at its destination, and no one saw it again. When the Cyclops failed to arrive, the absence was not immediately understood. Ships could be delayed, routes could take longer than expected, and in wartime, communication was not always consistent. But as time passed, the lack of contact became more difficult to explain. The United States Navy began efforts to determine what had happened. Records were reviewed, routes were examined, and ships operating in the same region were asked if they had seen the Cyclops. The search expanded outward from the ship's last known position. Areas along its expected path were considered. Reports were gathered, but there was nothing to follow. No debris was found, no damaged cargo, no lifeboats, no signal that the ship had broken apart or been forced to abandon its course. The ocean along that route remained as it had been, open, active, and unchanged. The absence of evidence became part of the problem. A ship of that size, carrying that much weight, would normally leave something behind. A trace, a fragment, but nothing appeared. The search continued within the limits of what was possible at the time, and as it did, the situation became clearer in a different way. The Cyclops had not been delayed. It had not changed course in any confirmed direction. It had not sent a signal. It had simply stopped being present. In the absence of wreckage or confirmed reports, attention turned to what might have happened to the Cyclops during its final days at sea. One possibility was structural failure. The ship had been carrying a heavy load of manganese ore, a dense material that placed significant weight within the hull. If the cargo had shifted during the voyage, it could have affected the balance of the vessel. In open water, even a slight imbalance could become more serious over time. A list to one side. A strain on the structure, a gradual loss of stability that might not have been immediately visible from the outside. Another possibility was weather. Although no severe storm had been officially recorded along the ship's route at the time, conditions at sea can change quickly. A sudden shift in wind. Rough water building over a short period. If the ship had already been under strain, those conditions could have worsened the situation. There was also the question of mechanical failure, a loss of propulsion, damage below the waterline, something that reduced the ship's ability to respond to changing conditions. If that had occurred, the vessel could have become vulnerable without the ability to correct its course or maintain stability. Other theories extended beyond natural causes. At the time, the possibility of enemy action was considered. The Cyclops was traveling during World War I, and naval vessels were at risk in certain regions. But no confirmed evidence of an attack was ever found. No reports of engagement, no indication that another vessel had encountered it. Each explanation offered a way to imagine the final hours of the ship. A slow imbalance, a sudden shift, a failure that could not be corrected, but none of them could be confirmed. No single account matched all of the known details, and without the ship, without the crew, and without any direct record of what had occurred after its last message, the sequence of events remained incomplete. In the years that followed, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remained one of the largest non-combat losses in the history of the United States Navy. The ship was never recovered. No confirmed trace of its structure was found, and none of the more than 300 people on board were ever accounted for. The route it had taken remained in use. Ships continued to travel along the same path between the Caribbean and the United States. The waters did not change. The conditions did not become more clearly defined. There was no single point along that route that could be identified as the place where the Cyclops had ended. Over time, the story of the ship became part of a broader pattern associated with disappearances at sea. A vessel departing under normal conditions, a final message that did not indicate danger, and an absence that could not be explained. But the Cyclops remains distinct in its scale. A ship of its size, a crew of that number, a disappearance without debris, without distress, and without a confirmed cause. Today, the ocean along its route appears no different than it did in 1918. Ships pass through it. Routes are followed, and the surface gives no indication of what may lie beneath it. No marker, no visible remains, only a point in time where a ship continued forward and was not seen again. That was tonight's story. You've been listening to The Midnight Box. Wherever you are, thank you for listening. Good night.